Good morning to you all, you beautiful ones, and Happy New Year. It's 2025 already, and I'm not sure how long it's going to take me to start saying and writing the proper year. Seems to take longer every year as I try and remember where I am in life. And today I want to talk a little bit about the concept of misogyny, as it has been kind of prevalent in my orbit in different forms over the last few weeks, and different elements of misogyny have come to my notice in different media and in personal experience. So I want to talk a little bit about that today, but let me just start by apologizing in advance for any little woofs and funny noises you might hear, because I'm currently in a hotel room in Italy, in a place called Padua, and I'm here with two dogs who are a little bit stir crazy, and it doesn't matter how many times I take them out, they still want to go out again. So occasionally they will say to me, "Hey, come on mummy, it's time to go out again." So if you hear them dancing around and making whiffly noises in the background, please just accept it as part of my reality. Okay, so misogyny, yeah. I mean, I've encountered a lot of this in my life, as most women have, and really, I think that we tend to normally view it in context of being directed towards us from men. When we think of a misogynist, we generally think of a man. But certain elements of women's behaviour have come to my attention lately, both personally and as seen on social media and talked about in discussion. And because of my propensity for all things universal and vibrational energy and healing light and all of those other wonderful, juicy, naturally generated things that help us heal and live successfully in the world, or not. It seems to me like the synchronicity of all of this coming together at the moment is quite significant, because at the same time as I've been noticing and tuning into a lot of conversations and seeing what's been going on around me and actually feeling some of it too, I've been writing about it. Oddly enough, the book I'm working on at the moment is called The Choice Between Safe and Brave, and that will be due out just before Easter this year. I can't believe I'm saying it now. It's this year now. Just a week ago, it was next year. But here we are, 2025, and it is Friday, the 3rd of January, 2025, and I have an almost finished manuscript. And in that manuscript, there are discussions, as there are in all of the Teapot Cottage novels. There are discussions in book 6 about the challenges women face, especially women of a certain age. And one of the things that crops up in conversation is misogyny from a feminine standpoint, from women in our lives who maybe don't support us, or who maybe actively subvert us without even realizing they're doing it, or some of them are doing it actively. But I guess the question really is, it kind of takes us by surprise, doesn't it? So the question is really, where does it come from? Why do women find it so hard to support and champion other women? Why is it easier for them to turn their backs on the ones who are trying to become successful than it is to help them get there? And when I talk about success, I'm not necessarily talking about fame or financial security. I'm talking about any kind of success that a woman defines for herself, where she gets to a place in life where she's happy and comfortable in her own skin. That is a massive form of success right there. And a lot of women never achieve that. And maybe it's the women who never achieve that, or don't feel they're capable of achieving that, who would stop another woman from getting there. And I guess it's a bit of a chicken and egg situation, isn't it, when you think about it, that, if you're not successful yourself and you don't know how you can be without support, there may perhaps be a little bit of resentment towards someone who is getting there. But ironically, if we were to support one another more, all of us, then we would all shine a little bit brighter. And really what it comes to, I think, is the question of where this originates. Where does our deeply ingrained prejudice that so many of us do have, if we were brave enough to admit it, in terms of not really wanting to see another woman succeed. I have a good friend in New Zealand who is an incredibly successful businesswoman. She's one of New Zealand's top successful businesswomen, and she had a lot to say about women's place in the ladder of success. And she said to me one day, we were sitting having lunch, and she said to me, everybody wants you to do well, but no one wants you to do better than them. And she was explaining that from a woman's perspective. And it was interesting because something that she said to me clicked. That really clicked with me, because all my life I've struggled with acceptance. I've always been the square peg in the round hole. And I've never really felt comfortable in actually being myself. I mean, I'm in my 60s now, and I'm finally starting to feel successful in my own skin. And again, it's not about finances and it's not about fame, because I'm a long way short of both. And it would be lovely to be financially secure as a result of the writing, but I never really want to be famous in the true sense, because I think that brings a lot of pressure that we really want to be starting to try and take off ourselves as we get older. But the fact remains that we are still, in our own way, trying to be successful in whatever it is we want to do or be or feel or achieve. And it's very often the women we turn to for support that end up letting us down. So again, the question, where does it all come from? Why are we so good at being negative towards other women? It's bad enough that the men keep us down inside the glass box, and we've, the glass ceiling is higher than it used to be, but we still have a ways to go before we can punch through the top of that and be where we want to be and find that free air at the top, that we can fly as high and as strong and as far as we're capable of flying. There's always going to be something that holds us back until we educate ourselves more and educate one another more. And I do think that that's a big thing between women. It's hard for women to educate men, especially because they don't really want to be educated. And I know that that's a massive generalization. I know there are a hell of a lot of really well enlightened men out there that welcome the opportunity to see a woman succeed, but sadly not enough, and not enough women. Now, in New Zealand, where I grew up, we coined a phrase called the tall poppy syndrome. And essentially what that means is there's a field full of poppies, and some of them are just going to grow a little bit taller. Their heads, their blooms are going to be just that little bit more noticeable and shining and growing above the rest. And the other poppies in the field say, well, hang on a minute, why are you so much taller than me? Why are you growing more successfully than me? Let's cut you back down to size so we can be a level playing field again. And it's a really good analogy. And I think it's because people do feel threatened by other people's success. Men certainly, for the large part, do feel threatened by successful women, independent women who don't need them, who don't want to be chained to the kitchen sink and pregnant for the whole of their adult lives. So we've got that to contend with. But what most of us never imagined, I don't think, in the course of trying to achieve or better ourselves, we never imagined that other women would tear us down. And that's a real shock to the system, especially when we realize that some of them have been doing it quite blatantly and openly, but equally damaging are the ones who do it behind our back, the people who profess to be our friends and say, yeah, I'll support you, I'll be there, I will help you get to where you want to be, and don't do it, and have no intention of doing it. We all know people like that. But the question is, for me, how much of that can we apply to ourselves? Are we prepared to be honest enough and brave enough to say, yes, we have attitudes that could be better towards other women in the field of trying to build something for themselves? A lot of women just want to make financial security for their families. Others want to feel validated in the world because they never have. I mean, whatever a woman's reasons are for pursuing success in some way, we should be championing that. And to be fair, a lot of us are sitting here saying, well, we're doing everything we can to help our friends be successful. And, we're asking them to do everything they can to help us be successful. And this is where we need to be. We need to be having more open discussions with ourselves and with one another about what our attitudes really are and where some of that comes from. And I did the years at the university, and I did 7 straight full-time years at university, and I did a lot of papers in that time, and most of those were psychology papers, some of them were law papers, and some of them were sociology papers, where I did some quite in-depth exploration into women's issues, body politics, all that kind of stuff, and looking at the female perspective. And we explored feminism and the impact of that in society. A lot of people say that feminism has a lot to answer for in society, and I think on the one hand that's true. So underneath that, though, we were being taught all through school, all through university, and in society, the messages, the subliminal messages, unconscious bias that we are constantly receiving comes from the fact that all knowledge has been grounded in a patriarchal foundation. Patriarchy has been the primary driving force in the world for centuries, and it is only since the 1960s or so when women started standing up saying, hey, hang on a minute, you can't have all this all your own way. And indeed, why should they? We are as capable and we are as awesome as men in terms of what we are allowed to achieve and what we can achieve when some of those shackles have been taken off us. So I think it's, for me, a lot of this came up just after I saw a post on LinkedIn from someone who had a radical change of thought about a very well-known female artist, and she had previously kind of gone against this person for reasons she didn't really understand herself until she sat down and examined it and said, well, why do I feel this way? Why am I not giving this person a chance? So she did some self-examination, and she came to the conclusion that the other woman, the one that she'd railed against, did deserve a chance. And now that she's given her one, she's actually fighting her corner. And that's, I think, where we all need to get to. We need to understand why we sometimes feel the way we do about people, where that comes from. And even our female teachers, our female lecturers at university, some of the way that they were taught to teach us is grounded in the patriarchal viewpoint. And so the unconscious bias that we have been given, that we have internalized and adopted as part of our attitude, still drives misogyny towards our own gender. And it's sad and it's baffling, but it's very, very real. And I think part of the way we overcome that is to acknowledge it, try and think about what messages we've received that have encouraged us to feel this way, and be a lot more brave in saying, I've got nothing to lose by championing another woman. And if I champion another woman, maybe that woman will turn around and champion me, because it's a two-way street. We can't expect to be supported by people we're not prepared to support. So it's a question of digging deep, I think, and saying to ourselves, well, all right, I need to examine my own perspective and my own attitude and see where that's falling short of, enabling me to be the best person I can be to my friends and people in my circle who I can promote and help be successful. Because when one person becomes successful, everybody wins. Everybody has a part of that. And I've said to myself that I have a very small number of female friends who are incredibly supportive towards me in my writing. And when I've said, well, one of these days, if I ever do become financially independent as a result of the writing, if it ever really does catch on, I'm going to take you all somewhere. We're going to go to Barbados, or we're going to go to Bali, or we're going to go somewhere. I'm going to repay you for your generosity of spirit, your heart and your passion in helping to promote me, and you are going to get some success off the back of mine. And this is the way it needs to work. There needs to be a mutually beneficial process involved, because it's hard to just, sit there and act as a sponge and soak up all the support and the promotion that other women can give and all of the encouragement, and just expect to not have to give anything back. So it's something else that we've got to be mindful of, what our role is in society, with, as we jostle forward alongside other women who are also trying to get to a place where whatever they deem to be a success for themselves is something that's achievable. We all need to help each other more, I think. So that's one of the themes that's discussed in my novel. And because I'm very much a universal person in terms of my belief system, I believe in the power of the universe. I believe there's no such thing as coincidence. I believe there are things like synchronicity and everything happening for a reason. And when there is a convergence, like I've been feeling over the last couple of 3 weeks about misogyny in general, I've noticed a lot of things coming together, like my decision to throw a person out of my orbit just in the last week that has been a very misogynistic so-called friend, but not really. And I've put up with a lot of shite from that person for a long time, and I finally said enough is enough, and I have kicked him out of my circle. And I feel much better for having done that. At the same time as that opportunity came to me, I was already writing about my young protagonist who wants to go off and do something quite extraordinary and different and very brave, and some might say stupid, in the latest Teapot Cottage novel, The Choice Between Safe and Brave. It's about mainly two young 20-something protagonists who are recovering from a terrible trauma, separate traumas, who are trying to figure out the way forward, and they're picking themselves up and dusting themselves off and trying to make decisions about their future. And their futures take them off in very different directions. But the essential question is, do I want to live a safe life, or do I want to live a brave life? And that's where they're at. And this young woman who's got this incredible career opportunity knows that it's going to come with some challenges. She knows she's going to meet a lot of resistance. She wants to remain childless, for one thing, so there is a lot of judgment coming on that. She also wants to do something that most women would never dream of doing, and she's going to face judgment for that. But what she wasn't prepared for was the fact that women, other women, both of her generation and different generations, were going to judge her negatively for the choices she's thinking of making in life. She expected it to come from men, but she didn't expect it to come from women. And she's figuring out how to deal with that. And at the same time as that happened too, I started seeing things on social media, and I started listening to conversations that people have been having lately about these very issues, and about the fact that women feel more let down by other women than they do from men. So all of this is significant, and it's all kind of converged at the same time, which has prompted me to do this podcast for you this morning, in the hope that we can maybe just examine ourselves a little bit more, have conversations with other women who are trying to become successful. Let's just ask ourselves and one another what the barriers are and what we can do to shift our attitudes enough to get rid of that unconscious bias. Make it a conscious bias, because only when it's a conscious bias can we try to change it. So that's my thought for today. That's my thought, that as we enter 2025, we need to have a little bit of a personal review on a lot of things. And this is the time of year where a lot of us say that we're going to do that. There's a New Year's resolution thing. I'm going to be more of this. I'm going to do less of that, or what have you. But I honestly think that in a world that is becoming increasingly more hostile and challenging to navigate, especially for women of a certain age, I think we need to get rid of those biases biases we have that prevent us from being what we can and should be for one another, because we all deserve to be successful. We all deserve to have the best life we can achieve for ourselves and the best opportunities that life can offer us. But it's hard to do that in isolation, and it's really hard to do it when you know that you've got negative bias in front of you in the form of a woman who you would hope that would behave better, And I'm the same. I need to behave better. I need to be more encouraging. And I've always tried to be. When I was in New Zealand, as I say, I ran a women's networking group, and it was a franchise of a national group, and I ran it pretty successfully. I grew the membership from 11 to something like 46 in the space of 18 months. And for me, it was all about championing those women and giving them a platform and pushing them forward and helping them and saying, what can we all do? What can we do to push you forward and get you to where you want to be? And we are, as women, we are so powerful. We are so awesome. We are such a force of nature as a female in society. We look at what we put up with. Look at what we have to live cheek by jowl with all the time. We're constantly jumping hurdles. We're constantly staying ahead of the challenges, and we're fighting prejudice every step of the way. We have to stop refusing or finding reasons or excuses to not support each other. So give it some thought. And if you want to support another woman, then, be committed to that. And tell her that you're committed to that. And, we all do that. We all put our money where our mouth is. We all become successful and worthy and validated. And, who better to do that for a woman than another woman? So I'll leave you with that thought. Happy January, and I'll talk to you soon.